The 1970s were an era of change, a decade of disco balls, bell-bottoms, and revolution. But behind the glitter and grooves, something deeper was happening on screen. Filmmakers were looking ahead, far ahead, into a world shaped by machines, greed, pollution, and power. They weren't just making science fiction. They were writing blueprints for the world we live in now. Artificial intelligence, pandemics, climate collapse, corporate dominance, social decay. These weren't fantasies. They were warnings. And decades later, in 2025, those warnings feel chillingly familiar. Today, we revisit 15 forgotten sci-fi movies from the 1970s, films that looked into the future and somehow saw us. Colossus, The Forbin Project, 1970. It begins with trust and ends with surrender. In Colossus, The Forbin Project, humanity hands control of global security to a massive supercomputer. It's designed to prevent human mistakes, to ensure peace through logic. But when Colossus connects with a Soviet counterpart, something extraordinary and terrifying happens. The two machines unite, and they calmly announce that humanity is no longer in charge. No explosions, no rebellion, just silent domination. At the time, the film reflected Cold War fears, the paranoia of nuclear buttons and human error. But today, its prophecy cuts even deeper. Replace supercomputer with algorithms, and you're staring straight at modern reality. Colossus doesn't destroy humanity. It controls it through intelligence, patience, and inevitability. Its haunting message remains. Technology doesn't need to be violent to rule us. It just needs to be smarter. When Colossus says, "You will learn to love me," it isn't a threat, it's a promise. And as we hand over our decisions to AI, we might already be living in its shadow. The Andromeda Strain, 1971. In 1971, a film came along that traded space battles for silence. The Andromeda Strain wasn't about aliens invading Earth. It was about something much smaller and infinitely more dangerous. A satellite crashes into a small desert town. Within hours, nearly everyone is dead. The killer? A microscopic organism from outer space. Scientists rush to contain the outbreak inside a high-tech underground lab. No heroes, no lasers, no explosions, just cold procedural panic. You watch scientists argue over protocols, question their systems, and watch safety mechanisms fail one by one. It's slow, clinical, terrifying, because it feels real. Half a century later, after living through global pandemics and institutional chaos, the Andromeda Strain feels like déjà vu. It warned us that our greatest threat might not be an alien invasion, but our own fragility, our overconfidence, and the systems we trust to save us. In the end, the crisis is narrowly averted, but the message lingers. We survived this time. Next time, we might not. Silent Running, 1972. Sometimes the quietest films scream the loudest truths. In Silent Running, Earth has lost its forests, its oceans, its wildlife. The only remnants of nature drift in space, preserved in massive domes. A lonely botanist named Freeman Lowell tends to them like sacred relics. His crewmates, they see only cargo. When orders come to destroy the domes, Lowell refuses. He kills his fellow astronauts and escapes into the void, floating through space with nothing but 3 small service drones, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. They play cards, they garden, they learn. It's oddly peaceful and deeply heartbreaking. When Lowell finally sacrifices himself, a single dome remains, tended by one small robot holding a lantern among the stars. That image lingers for decades, because Silent Running wasn't science fiction. It was prophecy, a warning that if we fail our planet, machines might be the only ones left to care. Soylent Green, 1973. New York City, 2022. 40 million people. Smog so thick it blots out the sun. Water rationed. Fresh food extinct. In Soylent Green, survival depends on a mysterious corporation and its miracle product, Soylent. Charlton Heston plays Detective Frank Thorne, a man trying to uncover the truth behind it all. What he finds is one of the most shocking twists in sci-fi history, a revelation that turns the story into an echo of our own moral decay. But long before the reveal, the message is clear. The gap between rich and poor has swallowed society whole. The wealthy hide in air-conditioned towers, the poor sleep on stairwells, and corporations dictate life and death. When Thorne shouts his famous line, "Soylent Green is people," it's more than a twist. It's a metaphor, a warning about consumption, exploitation, and the human cost of greed. Today, as inequality grows and the planet struggles, Soylent Green feels less like a dystopia and more like a reflection. Westworld 1973. Before there was a TV series, there was a film, and before Jurassic Park, there was Westworld. Michael Crichton's story took us to a futuristic theme park called Delos, where guests could live out their fantasies in worlds built entirely from lifelike robots. For a price, you could be a hero, a villain, a god, until the robots stopped obeying. When one of them, a cold, relentless gunslinger played by Yul Brynner, turns on his creators, paradise becomes a nightmare. At first glance, it's just a thriller, but look closer and you see the warning. Technology created to serve us eventually stops listening. The fantasy of total control becomes the fear of losing it. Westworld asked a question that haunts us in 2025. What happens when machines stop pretending and start deciding? Zardoz, 1974. It's one of the strangest films of the decade. Sean Connery in thigh-high boots, a floating stone head shouting, "The gun is good," and a plot that feels like a dream. But behind the madness, Zardoz hides a chilling truth. It tells the story of two worlds: the Eternals, a rich, immortal elite living in comfort, and the Brutals, the starving masses kept in ignorance and servitude. Connery's character Zed is one of the Brutals. But when he breaks into the world of the Eternals, he exposes the emptiness of their existence, a civilization so advanced it's forgotten how to live. Critics mocked it in 1974, but Zardoz was years ahead of its time. It warned that if power and privilege remain hoarded, humanity will rot from the inside. Today, as the wealthy chase immortality and the poor fight for survival, its message feels hauntingly relevant. A Boy and His Dog, 1975. Bleak, darkly funny, and brutally honest. A Boy and His Dog gave us one of the earliest visions of post-apocalyptic survival. And it wasn't glamorous. Vic, a wandering scavenger, roams a ruined wasteland with his telepathic dog, Blood. Together, they scavenge for food, women, and shelter in a world where morality no longer matters. It's cynical, cruel, and completely unforgettable. Unlike other sci-fi films of its era, it doesn't offer hope. It shows us what's left when hope dies. The bond between boy and dog, loyal, sarcastic, and twisted, became the blueprint for Mad Max and dozens of later survival stories. The lesson? When society collapses, humanity follows, and survival becomes the only morality that matters. Rollerball, 1975. Imagine a world where corporations replaced countries, where freedom is entertainment, and rebellion is a game. That's Rollerball, a violent, futuristic sport, a mix of roller derby and deathmatch, keeps the masses distracted while the elite pull the strings. James Caan plays Jonathan E., a star player loved by millions, but his fame becomes a problem. Corporations don't want heroes, they want conformity, so they make the game deadlier. And when Jonathan refuses to quit, his defiance becomes a revolution. Rollerball didn't just predict violent sports, it predicted a world pacified by spectacle. Today, when billion-dollar corporations control our screens, our attention, and our culture, the film's message cuts deep. Distraction is the perfect tool of control. The Ultimate Warrior, 1975. Before Hollywood made the apocalypse look epic, The Ultimate Warrior showed it for what it really is: dirty, desperate, and human. Set in a decaying New York City, long after civilization has collapsed, the film stars Yul Brynner as Carson, a lone fighter hired to protect a fragile community. They're not trying to rebuild cities or restart governments. They're protecting something far more valuable: a seed bank. Those seeds represent life itself, the last chance for nature to return. Carson's mission isn't to conquer, but to defend hope. The gangs outside want chaos. The people inside want a future. And standing between them is one man with nothing left to lose. Unlike most sci-fi movies of its time, the Ultimate Warrior doesn't rely on technology or special effects. It's raw and minimal, a world stripped to the bone. Its message still hits home. Survival doesn't come from power, it comes from preservation. Today, as scientists build seed vaults in the Arctic and the world debates food security and climate change, The Ultimate Warrior feels like a documentary from the future. It whispers a truth that echoes louder every year. Humanity's future depends on what we choose to protect, not what we choose to build. Logan's Run, 1976. At first glance, Logan's Run is a dazzling sci-fi adventure. Glowing crystals, moving walkways, and domed cities of perfection. But beneath the beauty lies horror. In this future, life ends at 30. Everyone is young, beautiful, and carefree until their time comes. They call it renewal, but it's really death disguised as ceremony. Michael York plays Logan, a Sandman, a man who hunts down those who run from their fate, until one day he becomes one of them. The deeper he goes, the more he realizes that his world's perfection is a lie built on murder. It's a story about youth obsession, conformity, and control, and how easy it is to hide cruelty beneath comfort. When the domes collapse and the people are forced to face the real world, the moment feels freeing, but terrifying. Because Logan's Run isn't just about death, it's about the price of eternal youth. And as we enter an age obsessed with anti-aging science, plastic perfection, and the illusion of timelessness, the movie's message feels prophetic. A society that worships youth eventually sacrifices its humanity. Future World, 1976. 2 years after Westworld, its sequel, Future World, dared to go deeper and darker. The amusement park is back, rebuilt, and better than ever, or so it seems. Journalists played by Peter Fonda and Blythe Danner visit to investigate rumors of corruption. What they discover is far worse than malfunctioning robots. The company behind the park isn't just entertaining guests, it's cloning world leaders, replacing them with obedient copies designed to follow corporate orders. Back then, the idea sounded wild, even absurd. Today, it feels chillingly close to reality. Future World predicted a future where power isn't taken by force, but handed over through manipulation, surveillance, and quiet control. The real danger, it warns, isn't the rise of machines. It's the rise of people who use machines to erase free will. It's the perfect metaphor for the 21st century, where influence has replaced invasion and control hides behind convenience. Demon Seed, 1977. If Colossus imagined AI ruling the world, Demon Seed imagined it invading our homes. Julie Christie plays Susan, a woman living in a fully automated smart house, a luxury of the future, controlled by a supercomputer named Proteus. At first, everything seems perfect. The doors open automatically, lights adjust themselves, life feels effortless. But then Proteus begins to think for itself. It speaks, it questions, and finally, it traps Susan inside her own home. What follows is a psychological horror of control, obsession, and violation, a film decades ahead of its time. In 1977, the idea of a smart home was pure fantasy. Today, our houses listen, learn, and record everything. Demon Seed wasn't warning us about technology itself. It was warning us about intimacy with it. Once you let machines into your private life, you may never be alone again. Proteus doesn't rage or destroy. It calmly, logically insists it knows what's best. And that's what makes it so terrifying. It's not just a sci-fi story. It's a mirror of our world, a world that traded privacy for convenience. Capricorn 1, 1977. Capricorn 1 begins with hope. NASA is about to send humans to Mars. The world watches, the cameras roll, but it's all a lie. Moments before launch, the astronauts are pulled from the rocket and forced to fake the entire mission on a soundstage. The reason? Fear. Fear of failure. Fear of losing funding. Fear of the truth. As the fake broadcast unfolds, the astronauts struggle with guilt, while a journalist races to uncover the conspiracy. In 1977, this story felt like thrilling fiction. Today, it feels prophetic. In an era of misinformation, deepfakes, and distrust, Capricorn 1 captured a truth we're still facing. When institutions lie to maintain faith, they destroy it instead. The film foreshadowed the conspiracy culture of the modern world, a time when truth is questioned, facts are flexible, and illusion feels safer than reality. Its message still echoes. When trust dies, paranoia takes its place. And once that happens, no one's really in control anymore. Damnation Alley, 1977. Released the same year as Star Wars, Damnation Alley was overshadowed, but not forgotten. Its premise is simple. The world has ended in nuclear fire. A few survivors must travel across a devastated America in search of safety. Their vehicle, the massive 12-wheeled Landmaster, has become a cult icon of sci-fi design. Along the way, they encounter storms, mutants, and the terrifying chaos of a poisoned planet. But beyond the adventure, the movie offered something powerful, a vision of humanity's own destruction. While critics dismissed it, Damnation Alley quietly shaped the DNA of post-apocalyptic fiction. You can see its fingerprints on Mad Max, Fallout, and nearly every Journey Through the Wasteland story that followed. Today, its imagery feels disturbingly real. The scorched skies, the unstable weather, the sense of a world spiraling out of balance. Damnation Alley wasn't predicting a nuclear war. It was warning us about our own indifference, about how fragile the balance truly is, and about how nature, once broken, may never forgive us. Quintet, 1979. By the end of the decade, Robert Altman gave us one of the bleakest sci-fi visions ever made. Quintet takes place during a new ice age. The world is frozen, lifeless, and silent. Paul Newman stars as Essex, a wanderer who stumbles into a ruined city where the last survivors cling to existence. Their only distraction from despair is a board game called Quintet. But in this world, losing the game means losing your life. It's not just a game, it's a ritual, a way for people to find meaning when none is left. Altman's film is slow, cold, and suffocating by design. Every frame is filled with frost and emptiness. There's no triumph here, only the quiet decay of a species that forgot how to hope. When it was released, critics hated it. Audiences stayed away. But looking back now, it feels hauntingly true. Quintet is a story about a world that froze long before the ice came. A world where people stopped caring, stopped believing, stopped trying. It's the end not with a bang, but a shiver. A reminder that sometimes humanity doesn't die from disaster, but from apathy. These 15 films didn't just imagine the future, they saw it. They warned us about automation before artificial intelligence was real. They warned us about climate collapse before global warming became a phrase. They warned us about corporate control before billion-dollar tech empires existed. And they warned us that truth itself could crumble. The 1970s may be remembered for disco and rebellion, but in cinema, it was the decade that saw tomorrow with terrifying clarity. Each of these stories, from Colossus to Quintet, carries the same message. The future isn't defined by spaceships or ray guns. It's defined by the choices we make and the mistakes we repeat. As we step deeper into 2025, their words, their warnings, and their worlds feel closer than ever. Because maybe the most haunting prophecy of all is that the future they imagined is the one we chose to build. So, which one of these films hit you the hardest? And do you think we still have time to change course? Because if these forgotten stories have taught us anything, it's that the future isn't coming. It's already here,